Hey guys, how's everyone doing tonight? Hope you're all ready for some comfy corner. And to continue reading the Artemis Fowl series with the second book. I know I'm pretty excited. I love this series, and I'm so happy to be reading it. So, yeah, I hope you guys are all having a great day. I have a new blanket for my Papasan chair. I just got it at Walmart. I thought it was really pretty, so I went ahead and picked that up. And I went and saw Deadpool tonight with my dad. That was pretty dang fantastic. Liked it a lot. Very good. Very good movie. So, yeah. Let's go ahead and we'll get started pretty quickly here. I did want to thank Connor for the host. I appreciate that support and sharing me with your followers and viewers. I have not gone back, loaded up last week's episode yet, so I will try to remember to do that tonight. Load it up at the same time that I'm loading up tonight's on the YouTubes. But I also haven't gone back and listened to hear to remind myself what voices I'm using. So that should be interesting. Oops. I'm going to try and stay consistent, but we shall see. We shall see. Okay. The music is going to stop as soon as this one's done. I think I've got everything else all set up according to my preferences. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Okay. Artemis Fowl, The Arctic Incident by Eoin Colfer. I might have to take the sleeve off. I think we're going to take the sleeve off. It slides around a little too much. Okay. Oh, you know what? Let us go ahead and wait for the song to finish. Oh, no. We'll go ahead and start. Artemis Fowl, A Psychological Assessment from the Teenage Years by Professor J. Argon, Brotherhood of Psychologists, commissioned by the Lower Elements Police. By the age of 13, our subject, Artemis Fowl, was displaying signs of an intellect greater than any human since Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Artemis had beaten European chess champion Eoin Colfer in an online tournament, patented more than 27 inventions, and won the architectural competition to design Dublin's new opera house. He had also written a computer program that diverted millions of dollars from Swiss accounts to his own, forged more than a dozen impressionist paintings that now hang in various galleries worldwide, and cheated the fairy people out of a substantial amount of gold. The question is, why? What drove Artemis to get involved in criminal enterprises? The answer lies with his father. Artemis Fowl Sr. was the head of a criminal empire that stretched from Dublin's docklands to the back streets of Tokyo, but he had had ambitions to establish himself as a legitimate businessman. Artemis Fowl Sr. had bought a cargo ship, stocked it with 250,000 cans of cola, and set course for Murmansk in northern Russia, where he had arranged a business deal that could prove profitable for decades to come. Unfortunately, the Russian mafia decided they did not want an Irish tycoon cutting himself a slice of their market, and sank the Fowl Star in the Bay of Kola. Artemis Fowl I was declared missing, presumed dead. Artemis Jr. was now the head of an empire with limited funds. In order to restore the family fortune, he embarked on a criminal career that would earn him over £15 million in 2 short years. This vast fortune was mainly spent financing rescue expeditions to Russia. Artemis refused to believe that his father was dead, even though every passing day made it seem more likely. Artemis avoided other teenagers and resented being sent to school, preferring to spend his time plotting his next crime. So even though his involvement with the Goblin Uprising during this year was to be traumatic, terrifying, and dangerous, it was probably the best thing that could have happened to him. At least, he spent some time outdoors and got to meet some new people. It's a pity most of them were trying to kill him. Artemis Fowl, the Arctic Incident. Prologue. Murmansk, northern Russia, 2 years before. 2 Russians huddled around a flaming barrel in a futile attempt to ward off the Arctic chill. The Gulf of Kola was not a place you wanted to be after September, especially not Murmansk. In Murmansk, even the polar bears wore scarves. Nowhere was colder, except perhaps Norilsk. The men were mafia enforcers, and were more used to spending their evenings inside stolen BMWs. The large gangster, Mikhail Vaskin, checked the fake Rolex beneath the sleeve of his fur coat. Now I have to come up with a Russian accent. This thing could freeze up. That is not Russian. That is kind of Russia. This thing could freeze up, he said, checking the diving bezel. What am I going to do with it then? Stop your complaining, said the one called Kamar. It's your fault we're stuck outside in the first place. Baskin paused. Pardon me? Oh my god, Mikhail. That's my game name for years. Well, Mr. B. Our orders were simple. Sink the Fowl Star. All you had to do was blow the cargo bay. It was a big enough ship, heaven knows. Blow the cargo bay, and down she goes. But no, the great Vasikin hits the stern. That is not Russia. There we go. Not even a backup rocket to finish the job. So now we have to search for survivors. She sank, didn't she? Mikhail Boludenka. Back in a bit. Okay, Mr. B. Kamar shrugged. So what? She sank slowly. Plenty of time for passengers to grab onto something. Vasikin, the famous sharpshooter. My grandmother could shoot better. Lyubkin, the mafia's man on the docks, approached before the discussion could develop into an all-out brawl. How are things? Asked the bear-like Yakut. Vasikin spat over the quay wall. How do you think? Did you find anything? I feel like I'm doing this wrong, but... Dead fish and broken crates, said the Yakut, offering both enforcers a steaming mug. Nothing was alive. It's been over 8 hours now. I have good men searching all the way down to Green Cape. Kamar drank deeply, then spat in disgust. What is this stuff? Pitch? Lyubkin laughed. Hot cola. From the Fowl Star. It's coming ashore by the crate load. Tonight, we are truly on the Bay of Kola. Be warned, said Vasikin, spilling the liquid into the snow. This weather is souring my temper, so no more terrible jokes. It's enough that I have to listen to Kamar. Not for much longer, muttered his partner. One more sweep, and we call off the search. Nothing could survive these waters for 8 hours. Vasikin held out his empty cup. Don't you have something stronger? I know you always keep a flask hidden somewhere. Lyubkin reached for his hip pocket, but stopped when the walkie-talkie on his belt began to emit static. 3 short bursts. 3 squawks.
That's the signal.
The signal for what? Liebkin hurried down the docks, shouting back over his shoulder.
3 squawks on the radio. It means that the K9 unit has found someone.
The survivor was not Russian. That much was obvious from his clothes. Everything from the Gore-Tex boots to the leather overcoat had obviously been purchased in Western Europe, perhaps even America. They were tailored to fit and made from the highest quality material. Though the man's clothes were relatively intact, his body had not fared so well. His bare hands were mottled with frostbite. One leg had been snapped below the knee, and his face was a horrific mask of burns. The search crew had carried him from a ravine 3 clicks south of the harbor in a makeshift tarpaulin stretcher. The men crowded around their prize, stamping their feet against the cold that invaded their boots. Vasikin elbowed his way through the gathering, kneeling for a closer look.
He'll lose the leg for sure, he noted. A couple of fingers, too. The face doesn't look too good either.
Thank you, Dr. Mikhail, commented Kamar dryly. Any ID? Vasikin conducted a quick thief search. Wallet and watch. Nothing. That's odd. You'd think a rich man like this would have some personal effects, wouldn't you? Kamar nodded. Yes, I would. He turned to the circle of men. 10 seconds. Then there'll be trouble. Keep the currency. I need everything else. The sailors considered it. The man was not big, but he was mafia, the Russian organized crime syndicate. A leather wallet sailed over the crowd, skidding into a dip in the tarpaulin. Moments later, it was joined by a Cartier chronograph, gold with diamond studding, worth 5 years of an average Russian's wages.
Wise decision, said Kamar, scooping up the treasure trove. Well? Asked Vasikin. Do we keep him?
Kamar pulled a platinum Visa card from the kidskin wallet, checking the name.
Oh, we keep him, he replied, activating his cell phone. We keep him and put some blankets over him. The way our luck's going, he'll catch pneumonia. And believe me, we don't want anything to happen to this man. He's our ticket to the big time.
Kamar was getting excited. This was completely out of character for him. Vasikin clambered to his feet.
Who are you calling? Who is this guy?
Kamar picked a number from his speed dial menu.
I'm calling Britva. Who do you think I'm calling?
Vasikin paled. Even calling the boss was dangerous. Britva was well known for shooting the bearers of bad news.
It's good news, right? You're calling with good news.
Kamar flipped the visa at his partner.
Read that.
Vasikin studied the card for several moments.
I don't read Angeliski. What does it say? What's the name?
Kamar told him. A slow smile spread across Mikhail's face.
Make the call, he said.
Chapter 1. Family Ties. The loss of her husband had had a profound effect on Angeline Fowl. She had retreated to her room, refusing to go outside. She had taken refuge in her mind, preferring dreams of the past to real life. It is doubtful that she would have recovered had not her son, Artemis II, done a deal with the elf Holly Short, his mother's sanity, in return for half the ransom gold he had stolen from the fairy police. His mother safely restored, Artemis Jr. focused his efforts on locating his father, investing large chunks of the family fortune in Russian excursions, local intelligence, and internet search companies. Young Artemis had received a double share of foul guile. But, with the recovery of his mother, a moral and beautiful lady, it became increasingly difficult for him to realize his ingenious schemes that were ever more necessary to fund the search for his father. Angeline, distraught over her son's obsession, and afraid of the effects of the past year on Artemis's mind, signed her 13-year-old up for treatment with the school counselor. You have to feel sorry for him. The counselor, that is. St. Bartleby's School for Young Gentlemen, County Wicklow, Ireland, present day. Dr. Poe leaned back in his padded armchair, eyes flicking across the page in front of him. Okay. Now, Master Fowl, let's talk, shall we? Artemis sighed deeply, smoothing his dark hair back from a wide, pale brow. When would people learn that a mind such as his could not be dissected? He himself had read more psychology textbooks than the counselor. He had even contributed an article to the Psychologist's Journal, under the pseudonym Dr. F. Roy Dean Schleip. Certainly, Doctor. Let's talk about your chair. Victorian? Poe rubbed the leather arm fondly. Yes, quite correct. Something of a family heirloom. My grandfather acquired it at auction in Sotheby's. Apparently, it once stood in the palace, the Queen's favourite. A taut smile stretched Artemis's lips, perhaps half an inch. Really, Doctor? They don't generally allow fakes in the palace. Poe's grip stretched the worn leather. Fake? I assure you, Master Fowl, this is completely authentic. Artemis leaned in for a closer examination. It's clever, I'll grant you, but look here. Poe's gaze followed the youth's finger. Those furniture tacks. See the criss-cross pattern on the head? Machine-tooled. 1920 at the earliest. Your grandfather was duped. But what matter? A chair is a chair. A possession of no importance, eh, Doctor? Poe scribbled furiously, burying his dismay. Yes, Artemis, very clever. Just as your file says. Playing your little games. Now, shall we get back to you? Artemis Fowl II straightened the crease in his trousers. There is a problem here, Doctor. Really? And what might that be? The problem is that I know the textbook answers to any questions you care to ask. Dr. Poe jotted in his pad for a full minute. We do have a problem, Artemis, but that's not it, he said eventually. Artemis almost smiled. No doubt the doctor would treat him to another predictable theory. Which disorder would he have today? Multiple personality, perhaps? Or maybe he'd be a pathological liar. The problem is that you don't respect anyone enough to treat them as an equal. Artemis was thrown by the statement. This doctor was smarter than the rest. That's ridiculous. I hold several people in the highest esteem. Poe did not glance up from his notebook. Really? Who, for example? Artemis thought for a moment. Albert Einstein. His theories were usually correct. And Archimedes, the Greek mathematician. What about someone whom you actually know? Artemis thought hard. No one came to mind. What? No examples? Artemis shrugged. You seem to have all the answers, Dr. Poe. Why don't you tell me? Poe opened a window on his laptop. Extraordinary. Every time I read this. My biography, I presume. Yes, it explains a lot. Such as? Asked Artemis, interested in spite of himself. Dr. Poe printed off a page. Firstly, there's your associate, Butler. A bodyguard, I understand. Hardly a suitable companion for an impressionable boy. Then there's your mother, a wonderful woman in my opinion, but with absolutely no control over your behaviour. Finally, there's your father. According to this, he wasn't much of a role model, even when he was alive. Avanto Music, thank you for the retweet. I appreciate that. The remark stung, but Artemis wasn't about to let the doctor realize how much. Your file is mistaken, Doctor, he said. My father is alive. Missing, perhaps, but alive. Poe checked the sheet. Really? I was under the impression that he had been missing for almost 2 years. Why, the courts haven't
have declared him legally dead. Artemis's voice was devoid of emotion, even though his heart was pounding. I don't care what the courts say, or the Red Cross. He's alive, and I will find him.
Hello, Zook the Gooch. Welcome to the stream. How are you tonight?
Poe scratched another note. But even if your father were to return, what then? He asked. Will you follow him? Will you follow in his footsteps? Will you be a criminal like him? Perhaps you already are.
Excuse me. Nope, we're still in the first chapter.
My father was no criminal, Artemis said testily. He was moving all our assets into legitimate enterprises. The Murmansk venture was completely above board. You're avoiding the question, Artemis, said Poe.
But Artemis had had enough of this line of questioning. Time to play a little game.
Why, Doctor, said Artemis, shocked. This is a sensitive area. For all you know, I could be suffering from depression. I suppose you could, said Poe, sensing a breakthrough. Is that the case?
Artemis dropped his face into his hands. Excuse me. Hello, Downshift. How are you tonight?
Artemis dropped his face into his hands. It's my mother, Doctor. Your mother? Prompted Poe, trying to keep the excitement from his voice. Artemis had caused 6 counselors to retire from St. Bartleby's just this year. Truth be told, Poe was on the point of packing his own bags. But now... My mother, she... Poe leaned forward on his fake Victorian chair. Your mother, yes? She forces me to endure this ridiculous therapy when the so-called counsellors are little better than misguided do-gooders with degrees. Poe sighed. Very well, Artemis. Have it your way. But you are never going to find peace if you continue to run away from your problems. Artemis was spared further analysis by the vibration of his cell phone. He had a coded secure line. Only one person had the number. The boy retrieved it from his pocket, flipping open the tiny communicator. Yes? Butler's voice came through the speaker. Artemis, it's me. Obviously. I'm in the middle of something here. We've had a message. Yes? From where? I don't know exactly, but it concerns the Foul Star. A jolt raced up Artemis's spine. Where are you? The main gate. Good man. I'm on my way.
I don't think so, Jacob. I actually started out the series with the 3rd book when I first got into them. But I do have the 1st book on my YouTube if you decide that you do want to hear it as well. It'll provide a little bit of backstory, but technically the books are, other than knowing how the characters know each other, the books are moderately standalone. Also, welcome Jacob, and thank you for the retweet. Okay. Dr. Poe whipped off his glasses. The session is not over, young man. We made some progress today, even if you won't admit it. Leave now, and I will be forced to inform the Dean. The warning was lost on Artemis. He was already somewhere else. A familiar electric buzz was crackling over his skin. This was the beginning of something. He could feel it. Chapter 2. Cruisin' for Chicks. The Lower Elements, Haven City, West Bank. The traditional image of a leprechaun is of a small, green-suited imp. Of course, this is the human image. Fairies have their own stereotypes. The people generally imagine officers of the lower elements police reconnaissance squad to be truculent gnomes or bulked-up elves, recruited straight from their college crunchball squads. Captain Holly Short fits neither of these descriptions. In fact, she would probably be the last person you would pick as a member of the LEP Recon squad. If you had to guess her occupation, the cat-like stance and the sinewy muscle might suggest a gymnast, or perhaps a professional spelunker. But if you took a closer look past the pretty face, into the eyes, you would see the determination so fiery it could light a candle at 10 paces, and a streetwise intelligence that made her one of the recon squad's most respected officers. Of course, technically, Holly was no longer attached to recon. Ever since the Artemis Fowl affair, when she had been captured and held for ransom, her position as recon's first female officer had been under review. The only reason she wasn't at home watering her ferns right now was that Commander Root had threatened to turn in his own badge if Holly were suspended. Root knew, even if Internal Affairs wasn't convinced, that the kidnapping had not been Holly's fault, and only her quick thinking had prevented loss of life. But the council members weren't particularly interested in loss of human life. They were more concerned with loss of fairy gold. And, according to them, Holly had cost them quite a chunk from the Recon Ransom Fund. Holly was quite prepared to fly above ground and wring Artemis Fowl's neck until he returned the gold, but that wasn't the way it worked. The book, the Fairy Bible, stated that once a human managed to separate fairies from their gold, then that gold was his to keep. So instead of confiscating her badge, Internal Affairs had insisted Holly handle grunt work somewhere she couldn't do any harm. Stakeout was the obvious choice. So, Holly was farmed out to Customs and Excise, stuck in a cam pod, and suckered to the rock face overlooking a pressure elevator chute. Dead-end duty. Smuggling was a serious concern for the lower elements police. It wasn't the contraband itself, which was generally harmless junk. Designer sunglasses, DVDs, cappuccino machines, and such. It was the method of acquiring these items. The Bawa Kel Goblin triad had cornered the smuggling market, and was becoming increasingly brazen in its above-ground excursions. It was even rumored that the goblins had constructed their own cargo shuttle to make their expeditions more economically viable. The problem was that goblins were dim-witted creatures. All it would take would be for one of them to forget to shield, and goblin photos would be bouncing from satellite to station news around the world. Then the lower elements, the last mud-people-free zone of the planet, would be discovered. When that happened, human nature being what it was, pollution, strip mining, and exploitation were sure to follow. This meant that whatever poor souls were in the department's bad books got to spend months at a time on surveillance duty, which is why Holly was now anchored to the rock face outside a little-used chute's entrance. E37 was a pressure elevator that emerged in downtown Paris, France. The European capital was red-flagged as a high-risk area, so visas were rarely approved. LAP business only. No one had been in the chute for decades, but it still merited 24/7 surveillance, which meant 6 officers on 8-hour shifts. Holly was saddled with Chick's Verbal for a podmate. Like most sprites, Chicks believed himself God's green-skinned gift to females, and spent more time trying to impress Holly than doing his job.
"Looking good tonight, Captain,"
was Chicks's opening line that particular night.
"You do something with your hair?"
Holly adjusted the screen focus, wondering what you could do with an auburn crew cut. "Concentrate, Private. We could be up to our necks in a firefight at any second."
"I doubt it, Captain. This place is quiet as the grave. I love assignments like this. Nice and easy. Just cruising.
Holly surveyed the scene below. Verbal was right. The once thriving suburb had become a ghost town with the chute's closure to the public. Only the occasional foraging troll stumbled past their pods. When trolls began staking out territory in an area, you knew it was deserted.
It's just you and me, Cap, and the night's still young.
Stow it, Verbal. Keep your mind on the job, or isn't private a low enough rank for you?
Yes, Holly. Yes, sir.
Sprites. They were all the same. Give a fairy a pair of wings, and he thought he was irresistible. Holly chewed her lip. They'd wasted enough taxpayers' gold on this stakeout. The brass should just call it a day. But they wouldn't. Surveillance duty was ideal for keeping embarrassing officers out of the public eye. In spite of this, Holly was determined to do the job to the best of her ability. The Internal Affairs Tribunal wasn't going to have any extra ammunition to throw at her. Not if she could help it. Holly called up their daily pod checklists on the plasma screen. The gauges for the pneumatic clamps were in the green. Plenty of gas to keep their pod hanging there for 4 long, boring weeks. You trying to get with Holly? Yeah. Tries to get with every girl. Next on the list was thermal imaging. Chicks, I want you to do a flyby. We'll run a thermal. Verbal grinned. Sprites love to fly.
Roger, Captain,
he said, strapping a thermoscan bar to his chest. Holly opened a hole in the pod, and Verbal swooped out, climbing quickly into the shadows. The bar on his chest bathed the area below with heat-sensitive rays. Holly punched up the thermoscan program on her computer. The view screen swam with fuzzy images in various shades of gray. Any living creature would show up, even behind a layer of solid rock. But there was nothing. Just a few swear-toads and the tail end of a troll shambling off the screen. Verbal's voice crackled over the speaker.
Hey, Captain, should I take her in for a closer look?
That was the trouble with portable scanners. The further away you were, the weaker the rays became. Okay, chicks, one more sweep. Be careful.
Don't worry, Holly. The Chicks man will keep himself in one piece for you.
Holly drew a breath to make a threatening reply, but the retort died in her throat. On the screen, something was moving. Chicks, you getting this?
Affirmative, Cap. I'm getting it, but I don't know what I'm getting.
Holly enhanced a section of the screen. 2 beings were moving around on the second level. The beings were gray. Chicks, hold your position. Continue scanning. Gray. How could gray things be moving? Gray was dead. No heat. Cold as the grave. Nevertheless... On your guard, Private Verbal. We have possible hostiles. Holly opened a channel to Police Plaza. Foley, the LEP's technical wizard, would undoubtedly have their video feed running in the operations booth. Foley, you watching?
Yep, Holly,
answered the centaur.
Just bringing you up on the main screen.
What do you make of these shapes? Moving grey? I've never seen anything like it.
Me neither.
There followed a brief silence, punctuated by the clicking of a keyboard.
2 possible explanations. 1, equipment malfunction. These could be phantom images from another system, like interference on a radio.
The other explanation?
It's so ludicrous that I hardly like to mention it.
Yeah, well, do me a favor, Foley. Mention it. Pyre is in the dragon nest, which is up on top of my dresser.
Well, ridiculous as it sounds, someone may have found a way to beat my system.
Holly paled. If Foley was even admitting the possibility, then it was almost definitely true. She cut the centaur off, switching her attention back to private verbal. "Chicks, get out of there! Pull up! Pull up!" The sprite was far too busy trying to impress his pretty captain to realize the seriousness of his situation.
Relax, Holly. I'm a sprite. Nobody can hit a sprite.
That was when a projectile erupted through a chute window, blowing a fist-sized hole in Verbal's wing. Holly tucked a Neutrino 2000 into its holster, issuing commands through her helmet's comm set. "Code 14. Repeat. Code 14. Ferry down. Ferry down. We are under fire. E-37. Send Warlock medics and backup." Holly dropped through the hatch, rappelling to the tunnel floor. She ducked behind a statue of Frond, the first Elfin King. Chix was lying on a mound of rubble across the avenue. It didn't look good. The side of his helmet had been bashed in by the jagged remains of a low wall, rendering his comm set completely useless. She needed to reach him soon, or he was a goner. Sprites only had limited healing powers. They could magic away a ward, but gaping wounds were beyond them.
"I'm patching you through to the commander,"
said Foley's voice in her ear.
"Stand by."
Commander Root's gravelly tones barked across the airwaves. He did not sound in the best of moods. No surprises there.
"Captain Short, I want you to hold your position until backup gets there."
"Negative, Commander. Chix is hit. I have to reach him."
"Holly, Captain Kelp is minutes away. Hold your position. Repeat. Hold your position."
Behind the helmet's visor, Holly gritted her teeth in frustration. She was one step from being booted out of the LEP, and now this. To rescue Chix, she would have to disobey a direct order. Root sensed her indecision.
"Holly, listen to me. Whatever they're shooting at you punched straight through Verbal's wing. Your LEP vest is no good, so sit tight and wait for Captain Kelp."
Captain Kelp. Possibly the LEP's most gung-ho officer, famous for choosing the name Trouble at his graduation ceremony. Still, there was no officer Holly would prefer to have at her back going through a door. "Sorry, sir, I can't wait. Chix took a hit in the wing. You know what that means." Shooting a sprite in the wing was not like shooting a bird. Wings were a sprite's largest organ, and contained 7 major arteries. A hole like that would have ruptured at least 3. Commander Root sighed. Over the speakers, it sounded like a rush of static.
"Okay, Holly, but stay low. I don't want to lose any of my people today."
And Velt, thank you for the host. I appreciate that support and you sharing me with your followers and viewers. Also, thank you for the retweet, Velt, and also Twitcher's News. Thank you for the retweet. How are you tonight, Velt? Three ruptured major arteries. Well, he's dead for sure. Right? Holly drew her Neutrino 2000 from its holster, flicking the setting up to 3. She wasn't taking any chances with the snipers. Presuming they were goblins from the Bawakel triad, on a 3 setting, the first shot would knock them unconscious for 8 hours at the very least. She gathered her legs beneath her and rocketed out from behind the statue. Immediately, a hail of gunfire blew chunks from the structure. Holly raced toward her fallen comrade, projectiles buzzing around her head like supersonic bees. Generally, in a situation of this kind, the last thing you do would be to move the victim. But with gunfire raining down on them, there was no choice. Holly grabbed the private by his epaulets, hauling him behind a rusted-out delivery shuttle. Chix had been out there a long time. He was grinning feebly.
"You came for me, Cap. I knew you would."
Holly tried to keep the worry from her voice. "Of
course I came, chicks. Never leave a man behind.
I knew you couldn't resist me,
he breathed.
I knew it.
Then he closed his eyes. There was a lot of damage done here. Maybe too much. Holly concentrated on the wound. Heal, she thought. And the magic welled up inside her like a million pins and needles. It spread through her arms and ran down to her fingers. She placed her hands on Verbal's wound. Blue sparks tinkled from her fingers into the hole. The sparks played around the wound, repairing the scorched tissue and replicating spilt blood. The sprite's breathing calmed, and a healthy green tinge started to return to his cheeks. Holly sighed. Chicks would be okay. He probably wouldn't fly any more missions on that wing, but he would live. Holly lay the unconscious sprite on his side, careful not to put pressure on the injured wing. Now, for the mysterious gray shapes. Holly upped the setting. Split fingers? Did I say split fingers? The spilt blood. Spilt blood. I am bad at words, apparently. Oh, so you're saying that she has split fingers? What? I am so confused, Mr. B. Pretty good here. Finally got a day off and it coincides with the weekend with no extra mandatory overtime day. Nice, that's awesome, Velt. Typo. Spirit fingers. Okay. Spirit fingers. I guess so. Okay. Holly upped the setting on her weapon to 4 and ran without hesitation toward the chute entrance. On your very first day in the LEP Academy, a big, hairy gnome with a chest the size of a bull troll's with a chest the size of a bull troll's pins each cadet to a wall and warns them never to run into an unsecured building during a firefight. He says this in a most insistent fashion. He repeats it every day until the maxim is etched on every cadet's brain. Nevertheless, this was exactly what Captain Holly Short of LEP Recon proceeded to do. She blasted the terminal's double doors, diving through to the shelter of a check-in desk. Less than 400 years ago, this building had been a hive of activity, with tourists lining up for above-ground visas. Paris had once been a very popular tourist destination. But, inevitably it seemed, humans had claimed the European capital for themselves. The only place fairies felt safe was in Disneyland Paris, where no one looked twice at the diminutive creatures, even if they were green. Holly activated a motion sensor filter in her helmet and scanned the building through the desk's quartz security panel. If anything moved, the helmet's computer would automatically flag it with an orange corona. She looked up just in time to see 2 figures loping along a viewing gallery toward the shuttle bay. They were goblins, all right, reverting to all 4s for extra speed, trailing a hover trolley behind them. They were wearing some kind of reflective foil suits, complete with headgear, obviously to fool the thermal sensors. Very clever. Too clever for goblins. Oh, I am sorry. I'm sorry, Master Corn. I forgot to, turn on my scale bot. There you go. Holly ran parallel to the goblins, 1 floor down. All around her, ancient advertisements sagged in their brackets. 2-week solstice tour, 20 ounces of gold, children under 10 travel free. She vaulted the turnstile gate,
racing past the security zone and duty-free booths. The goblins were descending now. There we go. The goblins were descending now, boots and gloves flapping on a frozen escalator. One lost his headgear in his haste. He was big for a goblin, over 3 feet. His lidless eyes rolled in panic, and his forked tongue flicked upward to moisten his pupils. Captain Short squeezed off a few bursts on the run. One clipped the backside of the nearest goblin. Holly groaned. Nowhere near a nerve center. But it didn't have to be. There was a disadvantage to those foil suits. They conducted neutrino charges. The charge spread through the suit's material like fiery ripples across a pond. The goblin jumped a good 6 feet straight up, then tumbled unconscious to the foot of the escalator. The hover trolley spun out of control, crashing into a luggage carousel. Hundreds of small cylindrical objects spilled from a shattered crate. Goblin number 2 fired a dozen rounds Holly's way. He missed, partly because his arms were jittery with nerves, but also because firing from the hip only works in the movies. Holly tried to take a screenshot of his weapon with her helmet camera for the computer to run a match on, but there was too much vibration. The chase continued down the conduits and into the departure area itself. Holly was surprised to hear the hum of docking computers. There wasn't supposed to be any power here. LEP engineering would have dismantled the generators. Why would power be needed here? She already knew the answer. Power would be needed to operate the shuttle monorail and mission control. Her suspicions were confirmed as she entered the hangar. The goblins had built a shuttle. It was unbelievable. Goblins had barely enough electricity in their brains to power a 10-watt bulb. How could they possibly build a shuttle? Yet there it was, sitting in the dock like a used craft seller's worst nightmare. There wasn't a bit of it less than a decade old, and the hull was a patchwork of weld spots and rivets. Holly swallowed her amazement, concentrating on the pursuit. The goblin had paused to grab a set of wings from the cargo hold. She could have taken a shot then, but it was too risky. She wouldn't be surprised if the shuttle's nuclear battery was protected by nothing more than a single layer of lead. The goblin took advantage of his reprieve to skip down the access tunnel. The monorail ran the length of the scorched rock to the massive chute. The chutes were natural vents that riddled the Earth's mantle and crust. Magma streams from the planet's molten core blasted toward the surface at irregular intervals. If it wasn't for these pressure releases, the Earth would have shaken itself to fragments aeons since. The LEP had harnessed this natural power for express surface shots. Recon officers rode the flares in titanium eggs in times of emergency. For a more leisurely trip, shuttles ascended to the various terminals around the world. Holly slowed her pace. There was nowhere for the goblin to go. Not unless he was going to fly into the chute itself, and nobody was that crazy. Anything that got caught up in a magma flare got fried right down to the subatomic level. The chute's entrance loomed ahead, massive and ringed by charred rock. Holly switched on the helmet's microphone. "That's far enough," she shouted over the howl of core wind. "Give it up. You're not going into the chute without science." Science was LEP speak for technical information. In this case, science would be flare prediction times, accurate to within a tenth of a second. Generally. The goblin raised a strange rifle, this time taking careful aim. The firing pin dropped, but whatever this weapon was firing, there wasn't any left. That's the problem with non-nuclear weapons. The wrong accent. That's the problem with non-nuclear weapons. You run out of charge, quipped Holly, fulfilling the age-old tradition of firefight banter, even though her knees were threatening to fold. In response, the goblin heaved the rifle in Holly's direction. It was a terrible throw, landing 15 feet short. But it served its purpose as a distraction. The Bawa-Kel triad member used the moment to fire up his wings. They were old models, rotary motor and a broken muffler. The roar of the engine filled the tunnel. There was another roar behind the wings, a roar that Holly knew well from 1,000 logged flight hours in the chutes. There was a flare coming. "All right, Mr. Bolo." Holly's mind raced. If the goblins had somehow managed to hook up the terminal to a power source, then all the safety features would have been activated, including Captain Short whirled, but the blast doors were already closing. The fireproof barriers were automatically triggered by a thermal sensor in the chute. When a flare passed by below, 6-foot-thick steel doors shut the access tunnel off from the rest of the terminal. They were trapped in here, with a column of magma on the way. Not that the magma would kill them. There wasn't much overspill from the flares. The superheated air would bake them drier than autumn leaves. The goblin was standing on the tunnel's edge, oblivious to the impending eruption. Holly realized that it wasn't a question of the fugitive being crazy enough to fly into the chute. He was just plain stupid. With a jaunty wave, the goblin hopped into the chute, rising rapidly from view. Not rapidly enough. A 20-foot-thick jet of roiling lava pounced on him like a waiting snake, consuming him completely. Holly did not waste time grieving. She had problems of her own. LEP jumpsuits had thermal coils to disperse excess heat, but it wouldn't be enough. In seconds, a wall of dry heat would roll in here, and raise the temperature enough to crack the walls. Holly glanced upward. A reinforced line of ancient coolant tanks were still bolted to the tunnel roof. She slid her blaster to maximum power and began sinking charges into the bellies of the tanks. This was no time for subtlety. The tanks buckled and split, belching out rancid air and coolant traces. Useless. They must have bled out over the centuries, but the goblins had never bothered replacing them. But there was one. A black oblong, out of place among the standard green LEP models. Holly positioned herself directly underneath and fired. 3,000 gallons of coolant-enhanced water crashed onto her head at the very moment a heat wave came billowing in from the chute. It was a curious sensation to be frozen and burned almost simultaneously. Holly felt blisters pop on her shoulders, only to be flattened by water pressure. Captain Short was driven to her knees, lungs starving for air. But she couldn't take a breath, not now, and she couldn't raise a hand to switch on her helmet tank. After an eternity, the roaring stopped, and Holly opened her eyes to a tunnel full of steam. She activated the demister in her vision and got up off her knees. Water slid in sheets from her non-friction suit. She released her helmet seals, taking deep breaths of tunnel air. Still warm, but breathable. Behind her, the blast doors slid open, and Captain Trouble Kelp appeared in the gap along with an LEP rapid response team. "Nice maneuver, Captain." Holly didn't answer, too absorbed by the weapon abandoned by the recently vaporized goblin. This was the prize pig of rifles, almost 2 feet long, with a starlight scope clipped above the barrel. Holly's first thought had been that somehow the Bawa-Kel were manufacturing their own weapons, but now she realized that the truth was far more dangerous. Captain Short pried the rifle from the hot, half-melted rock. She recognized it from her history of law enforcement in service. An old, soft-nosed laser. Soft noses had been outlawed long ago, but that wasn't the worst of it. Instead of a fairy power source, the gun was powered by a human AA alkaline battery. "Trouble," she called. "Have a look at this." "Darvit," breathed Kelp, reaching immediately for the radio controls of his helmet. "Give me a priority channel to Commander Root. We have Class A contraband. Yes, Class A. I need a full team of techies.
Get Foley ready, too. I want this entire quadrant shut down.
Trouble continued spouting orders, but they faded to a distant buzz in Holly's ears. The Bawa Kel were trading with the Mudmen. Humans and goblins working together to reactivate outlawed weapons. And if the weapons were here, how long could it be before the Mudmen followed? This is Artemis Fowl, the Arctic Incident. If you type !book, you'll get the information on the name of the book as well as the author, Masticorn. If only Pyreflint and Scorch were reading too. Maybe I'll get them at a break or something. Help arrived just after the nick of time. In 30 minutes, there were so many halogen spotlights buzzing around E37 that it looked like a Gollum World movie premiere. Foley was down on his knees, examining the unconscious goblin by the escalator. Foley was the main reason that humans hadn't yet discovered the people's underground layers. He was a technical genius, who had pioneered every major development from flare prediction to mind-wiping technology. Every discovery made him less respectful and more annoying. But rumor had it that he had a soft spot for a certain female recon officer. Actually, the only female recon officer.
Good job, Holly, he said, rubbing the goblin's reflective suit. You just had a firefight with a kebab.
That's it, Foley. Draw attention away from the fact that the Bulwark Hell fooled your sensors.
Foley tried on one of the helmets. Not the Bawa-Kel. No way. Too dumb. Goblins just don't have the cranial capacity. These are human manufacture.
Holly snorted. And how do you know that? Recognize the stitching?
Nope,
replied Foley, tossing the helmet to Holly. Holly read the label. Made in Germany.
I'd guess that this is a fire suit. The material keeps the heat out as well as in. This is serious, Holly. We're not talking a couple of designer shirts and a case of chocolate bars here. Some human is doing serious smuggling with the Bawa-Kel.
Foley stepped out of the way to allow the technical crew access to their prisoner. The techies would tag the unconscious goblin with a subcutaneous sleeper. The sleeper contained microcapsules of a sedative agent and a tiny detonator. Once tagged, a criminal could be knocked out by a computer if the LAP realized he was involved in an illegal situation. You know who's probably behind this, don't you? Said Holly.
Foley rolled his eyes. Oh, let me guess. Captain Short's arch-enemy, Master Artemis Fowl.
Well, who else could it be?
Take your pick. The people have been in contact with thousands of mudmen over the years.
Is that so? Retorted Holly. And how many that haven't been mind-wiped? Foley pretended to think about it, adjusting the foil hat jammed on his head to deflect any brain-probing signals that could be focused his way.
3,
he muttered eventually. Pardon?
3, okay?
Exactly. Fowl and his pet gorillas. Artemis is behind this. Mark my words.
You'd just love that to be the case now, wouldn't you? You'd finally get the chance to get your own back. Or to get your own back. You do remember what happened the last time the LAP went up against Artemis Fowl.
I remember. But that was last time. Foley smirked.
I would remind you that he'll be 13 now.
Holly's hand dropped to her buzz baton. I don't care how old he is. One zap with this, and he'll be sleeping like a baby. Foley nodded toward the entrance.
I'd save my charges if I were you. You're gonna need them.
Holly followed his gaze. Commander Julius Root was sweeping across the secured zone. The more he saw,
the redder his face grew. Hence the nickname Beetroot. "Commander," began Holly, "you need to see this." Root's gaze silenced her.
What were you thinking?
"Pardon me, sir?"
Don't give me that. I was in ops for the whole thing. I was watching the video feed from your helmet.
"Oh."
"Oh, hardly covers it, Captain."
Root's buzz-cut gray hair was quivering with emotion.
This was supposed to be a surveillance mission. There were several backup squads sitting on their well-trained behinds, only waiting for you to call. But no, Captain Short decides to take on the Bawa Kel on her own.
"I had a man down, sir. There was no choice."
What was Verbal doing out there in the first place?
For the first time, Holly's gaze dropped. "I sent him out to do a thermal, sir. Just following regulations."
Root nodded. I just talked to the paramedic Warlock. Verbal will be okay, but his flying days are over. There'll be a tribunal, of course.
"Yes, sir. Understood."
A formality, I'm sure, but you know the council.
Holly knew the council all too well. She would be first LEP officer in history to be the subject of 2 simultaneous investigations.
So, what's this I hear about a Class A?
All contraband was classed. Class A was code for dangerous human technology. Power sources, for instance. This way, sir. Thrabalin, thank you for the host. I appreciate that support and you sharing me with your followers and viewers. How are you tonight, Ballin? So let me catch up on this. Reminds me of elementary school teacher reading to me and I loved it. I guess I still do. Oh, I'm glad to remind you of that. I loved story time in school. I absolutely loved it. I forgot how to heist. It's exclamation point heist and then the number that you're betting. Pretty androgynous like that. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Raw Dog. Welcome to the stream, by the way. And also to you, Joe's life? Is that... Am I putting the space in the right places? Sorry, I just woke up from a nap. Doing good. Slightly ragey. Glad you had a good evening. Why slightly ragey? Ragey isn't good, Ballin. Also, I noticed you don't have past broadcasts, so I can't watch the VOD of you playing Deadpool. So not fair. I was gonna watch the VOD. Joe's life. Okay, awesome. That's not how you spell heist. There we go. There we go. Carm's got it. Okay. Okay. Holly led them to the rear of the maintenance area, to the shuttle bay itself. A translucent, restricted access periscope dome. Perspex dome. I have too much social media in my life. Obviously. Perspex does not look anything like Periscope. Console controls from Deadpool. And yeah, IR scrub. Need to start putting up VODs. I actually might make one part of tonight. My first one. Awesome. Awesome. That'd be cool, Ballin. Okay. Let me try this word again. A translucent, restricted access perspex dome had been erected in the shuttle bay. Holly passed through the frosted entrance flaps. You see, this is serious. Root studied the evidence. In the shuttle's cargo bay were crates of AA batteries. Holly selected a pack. Pencil batteries, she said. A common human power source. Crude, inefficient, and an environmental disaster. 12 crates of them right here. Who knows how many are in the tunnels already?
As far as LGBT goes, I am asexual, also non-binary gender identity. Thank you, Carm. Yes, Wednesdays are my book reading days. Fridays I do creative streams with fiber art. Tuesdays and Thursdays are storyline video games. Sundays are co-op games with my friend Storms. And Mondays are Marvel Midtown Madness Mondays. What is gender binary? Non-binary basically means I don't identify as male or female. So you did not get scorched. You made it, Carm. So yeah, non-binary would be like gender fluid is the specific. Is asexual like asexual means I am not sexually attracted to anyone. I still have I still experience romantic attraction, but that's kind of dependent on a lot of different things. But yeah, basically I'm just not sexually attracted to anyone. I feel like metrosexual still has sexual attraction based upon looks and fashion. It's not a personal choice. Personal choice would be celibacy. That's choosing not to have sex. Asexual is pretty much, it's a, my brain just stopped working. I can't think of the word. But like, there's heterosexuality, there's homosexuality, there's pansexuality, all that stuff, and then there's asexuality. They're all in the same grouping type thing. Asexual just means my sexual attraction is like non-existent. So can't choose who you're attracted to. You can only choose how you react to that. Exactly. Ray.exe has crashed. Pretty much. My brain does that a lot. Why are we discussing this? I'm always open for questions, so I take occasional breaks to interact with chat. We'll get back to the book. Don't worry, Master Corn. Don't worry, Master Corn. Yeah, I can words. I can totally words. Rebooting. No. Both reproductive organs is called being a hermaphrodite. That is not at all not at all asexual. Nice to have a break. It means that I'm more likely to be able to read words properly. Don't even words. Yeah. How to words. Yeah, awareness, I can totally words. I swear to God, I'm able to words. And technically there are no true hermaphrodites because that implies both organs are functioning. Fair. Not asexual reproduction. That's different from an asexual orientation. That is the word I was looking for. Asexual orientation is different from asexual reproduction. Just like a homosexual is not homosexual reproduction, it's a homosexual orientation. There may be someone out there who thinks they're utterly alone, and this may be the night they discover they're not. Exactly. Like, figuring this stuff out about myself, was, like, the most, uplifting thing for me. I do not feel sexual. Occasionally, like, I'll wear an outfit and it makes me feel extremely attractive. I don't know if I would say it makes me feel sexy. But I personally, I'm ace and I know I'm sexy. You go, Carm. I don't know. I sometimes wear clothes that make me feel attractive, but I wouldn't even, I wouldn't say that I've ever, no, that's not true. I had one dress that I put it on and I was like, okay, this is amazing. That dress felt sexy. But it was like one time and I didn't even buy the dress. There are rare cases where women can have their own children, where chromosome forms that a male would have to implant, but they haven't. I can't quite remember. Oh, interesting. I've not heard about that. I mean, I can't choose whether, like my sexual orientation is not a choice. I won't say that, yes, there are different spectrums. Some may be sex positive. What sex positive means is not sexually attracted to someone, but not completely against the idea of sex. They just don't experience that attraction to someone. I myself am consider myself sex repulsed asexual. I'm either sex repulsed or sex neutral. Personally, the idea of myself participating in sex is not something that I look forward to at all. Well, whether that may be true or not, I didn't experience any traumas like that. I had a great life growing up. My parents were fantastic. I experienced no molestation or anything of that sort. The most traumatic thing in my childhood was typical bullying at school, where kids would take my books and hold it up above my head because I was short. But other than that was about the most traumatic experience. So I would say it probably doesn't stem from from childhood trauma. It's not that I'm like, do not want. I do enjoy pleasure. Yeah, I'm meh. I am not sure. I do love kids, and even as a younger kid, when I was younger, I would always imagine having kids. Usually I imagined adopting kids, not gonna lie. But if I found someone that I wanted to be a life partner with, whether male or female, and I was with them long enough and I found myself being comfortable with that, it's a possibility. I'm not gonna completely rule it out. But, I mean, it's not a priority. It's not something that I can definitively say. Right now, I'm definitely not anything that I want, male or female. But, like I said, I'm not going to completely rule it out because I don't know what the future holds. You know. Watching 4 streams at once. So much data. You go, Joe. I never hear people talk about this. I like I said, I try to educate as much as possible. So. Not doctor, you mean? Same, except I was teased for weight. I was kind of teased for weight in the sense that I was so skinny, I had my friends' moms telling me that I needed to go shove burgers down my throat. Adoption is always an option. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with adoption at all. Much like anything else, it can, but doesn't necessarily. Heck, lactose intolerance probably can stem from childhood trauma. I mean, lactose intolerance can stem from Crohn's disease, which can stem from a compromised immune system, which can stem from child. And, like, because I experience lactose intolerance occasionally. I don't have lactose intolerance all the time. But that doesn't mean that someone who has lactose intolerance, obviously, they have Crohn's disease. Different things for different people. And also, I'm not going to speculate about if I could have, if I decided to have sex, would I don't know. I don't particularly care about the gender of a person. I'm not going to speculate about this fictional time, or this currently fictional time where I'm willing to have sex with someone. I'm not going to answer that one. I am not going to answer that one. Dr. Phil says you can only be straight. No, well, Dr. Phil would be wrong there. I don't think you should have intolerance towards anyone. Lactose intolerance. It's not intolerance towards someone. That's where your body can't digest milk properly and makes you ill. That's not having intolerance towards someone. That's your body rejecting milk. So what's so creative about this stream? Right now we've kind of broken off. This stream is usually reading a book, generally with voices. It's kind of like a voice acting type thing. But I didn't feel comfortable labeling it as video game or as gaming talk shows because it's not really about games. It's a book, but it's also not an actual video game that I'm playing. I felt creative was the most apt category to put this type of stream under with the book reading. Hashtag tangent. Yeah, those happen sometimes. Also, Raw Dog, at this point with the lactose intolerance thing, I'm starting to think that you might be trolling. Trolling. I can totally pronounce words. You might... I mean... Oh, we got a link. Oh, did we... what is it? Oh, is it it's a specific book? Here, I can click it here. Fun and Food with Guy Fieri? Probably won't. I don't, ESL? I don't know what ESL means. No, I clicked it because it doesn't, like, it says that it's purged, but I have it in within my bot. I currently only read books that I own. An incredibly polite troll. That is true. That is true. English as a second language. Oh, okay. Okay, I get it. I totally... That's absolutely a possibility. You know what? And I apologize. I do apologize for assuming poorly of you. That was definitely not right of me. Is it like Britney Spears, not a girl and yet a woman? Like, no. Also, my age, I'm 25. Yeah, I had to do math. But yes, I'm 25 years old. I would say, when you say not a girl yet a woman, Britney Spears not a girl, and yet not yet a woman. That's like a puberty type thing. Troll status has been revoked. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, and those are just the ones that I won't answer. There are, like I said, there are certain ones I won't answer, but oh, no, Raw Dog, you're perfectly fine. Not, like I said, I just didn't answer the ones that, or the one, I think it was only one that was inappropriate. But no, I'm definitely not offended. I have had some people that just throw up arguments to everything and, just kind of try to twist words around, and I was a little bit afraid that that's what you were doing, but now that I'm looking at it, that's definitely not what you were attempting, and I am perfectly fine answering questions. I really, really am. And you haven't offended me at all, and I'm rambling now. Hashtag ramble transit. I have to stand up to get Pyre, Master Corn. Possibly if I take a break. If I take a break, it's possible. Don't feel like you have to leave, Raw Dog. I'm sorry. Carm, put on socks. But I do appreciate that follow. And welcome you to the dark side. If you have something you need to do, that's perfectly fine for going. But no, don't feel like... I don't mean to make you feel like you need to leave or anything. Or that I'm offended. Your mom's calling for you. Alright, Raw Dog. Well, have a good rest of your day or night, whatever it may be for you. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope to see you again sometime. Raw Dog 496, thank you for the follow. Glad you're enjoying the stream thus far. Hope you continue to enjoy, and welcome to the dork side. Alright, let's actually get back to the book now. Because I got distracted. Hashtag ramble tangent. I put on fuzzy slippers instead. That works. Slippers work. Okay. I don't even remember where I was. Okay. Pencil batteries, she said. A common human power source. Crude, inefficient, and an environmental disaster. 12 crates of them right here. Who knows how many are in the tunnels already? Root was unimpressed.
Forgive me for not quaking in my boots. So a few goblins get to play human video games. So what?
Foley had spotted the goblin's soft-nosed laser.
Oh, no, he said, checking the weapon. Exactly, agreed Holly.
The commander did not appreciate being left out of the conversation.
Oh, no, he mimicked them. I hope you're just being melodramatic.
No, Chief,
replied the centaur, somber for once.
This is deadly serious. The Baba Kel are using human batteries to power the old soft-nose lasers. They only get about 6 shots per battery, but you give every goblin a pocket full of power cells, and that's a lot of shots.
Soft-nose lasers? They were outlawed decades ago. Weren't they all recycled?
Foley nodded.
Supposedly. My division supervised the meltdowns. Not that we considered it priority. They were originally powered by a single solar cell, with a lifespan of less than a decade. Obviously, somebody managed to sneak a few out of the recycling lockup.
Quite a few by the looks of all these batteries. That's the last thing I need. Goblins with soft noses.
The soft nose technique involved placing an inhibitor on a blaster, which allowed a laser to travel at slower speeds, actually penetrating the target. Initially developed for mining purposes, they were quickly adapted by some greedy weapons manufacturer. The soft noses were just as quickly outlawed, for the obvious reason that these weapons were designed to kill and not to incapacitate. Now and then, one found its way into the hands of a gang member, but this did not look like an isolated case. This looked like somebody was planning something big.
You know what the worrisome thing about this is?
Said Foley.
No,
said Root with a deceptive calmness.
Do tell me what the worrisome thing is.
Foley turned the gun around.
The way this weapon has been adapted to take a human battery. Very clever. There's no way a goblin could have figured this out on his own.
But why adapt the soft noses? Asked the commander. Why not just use the old solar cells?
Those solar cells are very rare. They're worth their weight in gold. Antique dealers use them to power all sorts of old gadgets, and it would be impossible to build a power cell factory of any kind without my sensors picking it up emissions. Much simpler just to steal them from the humans.
Root lit one of his trademark fungal cigars.
Tell me that's it. Tell me there's nothing else.
Holly's gaze flickered to the rear of the hangar. Root caught the glance and pressed past the crates to the makeshift shuttle in the docking bay. The commander climbed into the craft.
And what the hell is this, Foley?
The centaur ran a hand along the ship's hull.
It's amazing. Unbelievable. They put a shuttle together from junk. I'm surprised this thing gets off the ground.
The commander bit down hard on his fungus cigar.
When you're finished admiring the goblins, Foley, maybe you can explain how the Bawakel got hold of this stuff. I thought all outdated shuttle technology was supposed to be destroyed.
That's what I thought. I retired some of this stuff myself. This starboard booster used to be an E1, until Captain Short blew it out last year. I remember signing the destruct order.
Root spared a second to shoot Holly a withering glance.
So, now we have shuttle parts escaping the recycling smelters, as well as soft-nosed lasers. Find out how this shuttle got here. Take it apart, piece by piece. I want every strand of wire lasered for prints and DNA. Feed all the serial numbers into the mainframe. See if there are any common denominators.
Foley nodded.
Good idea. I'll get someone on it.
No, Foley. You get on it. This is priority. So give your conspiracy theories a rest for a few days and find me the inside fairy who's selling this junk.
But Julius,
protested Foley,
that's grunt work.
Root took a step closer.
1, don't call me Julius Civilian. And 2, I'd say it was more like donkey work.
Foley noticed the vein pulsing in the commander's temple.
Point taken,
he said, removing a handheld computer from his belt.
I'll get right on it.
You do that. Now, Captain Short, what is our Bawakel prisoner saying?
Holly shrugged. Nothing much. Still unconscious. He'll be coughing soot for a month as soon as he wakes up. Anyway, you know how the Bawakel works. The soldiers aren't told anything. This guy is just a grunt. It's a pity the book forbids from using the mesmer on other fairies.
Said Root, his face glowing redder than a baboon's behind. An even greater pity the Atlantis Convention outlawed truth drugs. Otherwise we could pump this convict full of serum until he sang like a drunken mudman.
The commander took several deep breaths to calm down before his heart popped.
Right now, We need to find out where these batteries came from, and if there are any more in the lower elements.
Holly took a breath. I have a theory, sir.
Don't tell me, groaned Root. Artemis Fowl, right?
Who else could it be? I knew he'd be back. I knew it.
You know the rules, Holly. He beat us last year. Game over. That's what the book says.
Yes, sir, but that was a different game. New game, new rules. If Father's supplying power cells to the Barwakel, the least we can do is check it out.
Root considered it. If Fowl was behind this, things could get very complicated very fast.
I don't like the idea of interrogating Fowl on his turf. But we can't bring him down here. The pressure underground would kill him.
Holly disagreed.
Not if we keep him in a secure environment. The city is equalized. So are the shuttles.
Okay, go, the commander said at last. Bring him in for a little chat. Bring the big one, too.
Butler?
Yes, Butler. Root paused. But remember, we're going to run a few scans, Holly. That's it. I don't want you using this as an opportunity to settle a score.
No, sir. Strictly business.
Do I have your word on that?
Yes, sir. I guarantee it.
Root ground the cigar butt beneath his heel.
I don't want anyone else getting hurt today. Not even Artemis Fowl.
Understood.
Well, added the commander, not unless it's absolutely necessary.
I think we're going to take a quick break, guys. I'm going to run to the bathroom, and I will go ahead and grab Pyre, Mastercorn. When I play Picture First, it's a lot easier to recognize the words when I'm not focusing on the audio, so I can... Oh, cool. That's awesome. That is awesome, Mastercorn. But yeah, so we'll be right back in just a moment. Gonna take a quick break, and we will resume shortly. And we're back. There we go. Okay. And if you guys enjoy the music, you can find it there. What did I do? Okay. We'll have it stop after this song. The music is by a friend of the stream, Avanto Music, who just hosted. Avanto Music, thank you for the host. Appreciate that support and you sharing me with your followers and viewers. How are you tonight, Avanto? Oh hey, perfect timing. Absolutely. Yep, we've got Pyre here, and then Flint as well. We'll just hang Flint from the book. He's a fan of books. Just have him sitting right there. Peek over the edge. Maybe. System Monitor. Thank you for the host. Appreciate that support and you sharing me with your followers and viewers. Oh, for those that don't know, System Monitor is Thurbalin's bot, and he terrorizes Avanto. Oh, poor Avanto. Oh, look! He did it! He castered! There we go. Okay. All bots terrorize me. I haven't done it with DorkyBot. DorkyBot loves you, Avanto. Okay. Excuse me. But yeah, how are you doing tonight, Avanto? How are you tonight? Chapter 3. Going Underground. St. Bartleby's School for Young Gentlemen. Butler had been in Artemis Fowl service since the moment of the boy's birth. He had spent the first night of his charge's life standing guard on the Sisters of Mercy maternity ward. For over a decade, Butler had been teacher, mentor, and protector to the young heir. The pair had never been separated for more than a week, until now. It shouldn't bother him. He knew that. A bodyguard should never become emotionally attached to his charge. It affects his judgment. But, in his private moments, Butler couldn't help thinking of the foul heir as the younger brother he had never had. Butler parked the Bentley Arnage Red Label on the College Avenue. If anything, the Eurasian manservant had bulked up since midterm. With Artemis in boarding school, he was spending a lot more time in the gym. Truth be told, Butler was bored pumping iron, but the college authorities absolutely refused to allow him a bunk in Artemis's room. And when the gardener had discovered the bodyguard's hideout just off the 17th green, they had banned him from the school grounds altogether. Artemis slipped through the school's gate, Dr. Poe's comments still in his thoughts.
"Problem, sir?"
said Butler, noticing his employer's sour expression. Artemis ducked into the Bentley's wine-colored leather interior, selecting a bottle of still water from the bar. "Hardly, Butler. Just another quack spouting psychobabble." Butler kept his voice level.
"Should I have a word with him?"
"Never mind him now. What news of the Foul Star?"
"We got an email at the manor this morning. It's an MPG."
Artemis scowled. He could not access MPG video files on his mobile phone. Butler pulled a portable computer from the glove compartment.
I thought you might be anxious to see the file, so I downloaded it onto this.
No worries, Yinja. How are you today? Also, Flint absolutely belongs on the book. Head of homework, so relaxing, but nice, Avanto. That's always a nice feeling. He passed the computer over his shoulder. Artemis activated the compact machine, folding out the flat color screen. At first, he thought the battery was dead, then realized he was looking at a field of snow. White on white, with only the faintest shadows to indicate dips and drumlins. Artemis felt the uneasiness rolling in his gut. Funny how such an innocent image could be so foreboding. The camera panned upward, revealing a dull twilight sky. Then, a black hunched object in the distance. A rhythmic crunching issued through the compact speakers as the cameraman advanced through the snow. The object grew clearer. It was a man sitting on... no, tied to a chair. The ice clinked in Artemis's glass. His hands were shaking. The man was dressed in the rags of a once fine suit. Scars branded the prisoner's face like lightning bolts, and one leg appeared to be missing. It was difficult to tell. Artemis's breath was jumpy now, like a marathon runner's. There was a sign on the man's neck. Cardboard and twine. On the sign was scrawled in thick black letters, Zdravstvuyte. Goddamn Russian words. Zdravstvuyte Sin. The camera zoomed in on the message for several seconds, then went blank. Is that all?
Butler nodded. Just the man and the sign. That's it.
Zdravstvuyte, muttered Artemis, his accent flawless. Lucky Artemis. Since his father's disappearance, he had been teaching himself the language.
Should I translate it for you?
Asked Butler, also a Russian speaker. His accent, however, was not quite so sophisticated. He had picked it up during a 5-year stint with an espionage unit in the late 80s. No, I know what it means, replied his young employer. Zdravstvuyte. Hello, son. Butler pulled a Bentley onto the divided highway. No one spoke for several minutes. Eventually, Butler had to ask.
Do you think it's him, Artemis? Could that man be your father?
Artemis rewound the MPG, freezing it on the mysterious man's face. He touched the display, sending rainbow distortions across the screen. I think so, Butler. But the picture quality is too poor. I can't be certain. Butler understood the emotions battering his young charge. He, too, had lost someone aboard the Foul Star. His uncle, the Major, had been assigned to Artemis's father on that fateful trip. Unfortunately, the Major's body had turned up in the Chersky morgue. Artemis regained his composure. I must pursue this, Butler.
You know what's coming next, of course.
Yes, a ransom demand. This is merely the teaser, to get my attention. I need to cash in some of the people's gold. Contact Lars at Zurich immediately. Butler accelerated into the fast lane.
Master Artemis, I have some experience in these matters.
Artemis did not interrupt. Butler's career before his current charge's birth had been varied, to say the least.
The pattern with kidnappers is to eliminate all witnesses. Then, they will generally try to eliminate each other, to avoid splitting the ransom.
Your point being?
My point being that paying a ransom in no way guarantees your father's safety. If indeed that man is your father, it is quite possible that the kidnappers will take your money and then kill all of us.
Artemis studied the camera screen.
You're right, of course. I will have to devise a plan.
Butler swallowed. He remembered the last plan. It had almost gotten them all killed, and could have plunged the planet into an interspecies war. Butler was a man who didn't scare easily, but the spark in Artemis Fowl's eyes was enough to send a shiver crackling down his spine. Shoot Terminal E1, Tara, Ireland. Captain Holly Short had decided to work a double shift and proceed directly to the surface. She paused only for a Nutribar and an energy shake before hopping on the first shuttle to the terminal at Terra. One of Terra's officials was not making her journey any easier. The head of security was annoyed that Captain Short had not only put all shoot traffic on hold to take a priority pod from E1, but then proceeded to commandeer an entire shuttle for the return journey. "Why don't you check your system again?" she said through gritted teeth. "I'm sure the authorization from Police Plaza has arrived by now." The truculent gnome consulted his hand-load computer.
"No, ma'am. I ain't got nothing."
"Look, Mr.
Commandant Terrell."
Commandant Terrell, I'm on an important mission here. National security. I need you to keep the arrivals hole completely clear for the next couple of hours. Terrell made a great show of almost collapsing.
"The next couple of hours? Are you crazy, girlie? I got 3 shuttles coming in from Atlantis. What am I supposed to tell 'em? 2 is off 'cause some LEP secret shenanigans? This is high season. I can't just shut things down. No way, no how."
Holly shrugged. "Fine. You just let all your tourists catch sight of 2 humans I'm bringing down here. There'll be a riot, I guarantee it."
2 humans?" said the head of security. "Inside the terminal? Are you nuts?"
Holly was running out of patience. And time. "Do you see this?" she demanded, pointing to the insignia on her helmet. "I'm LEP, a captain. No rent-a-cop gnome is going to stand in the way of my orders." Terrell drew himself up to his full height, which was a little more than 2 feet.
"Yeah, I heard of you. The crazy girly captain. Nope, I just changed accents. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I heard of you. The crazy girly captain. Caused quite a stir up here last year, didn't you? My tax ingots gotta be paying for that little screw-up for quite some time."
"Just ask Central, you bureaucratic idiot."
"Call me what you want, missy. We have our rules here, and without confirmation from below, ain't nothing I can do to change 'em. Especially not for some gun-toting girlie with an attitude problem."
"Well, get on the blower to Police Plaza, then."
Terrell sniffed. "The magma flares have just started acting up. It's hard to get a line. Maybe I'll try again after my rounds. Just you take yourself a seat in the departure lounge."
Holly's hand strayed toward her buzz baton. "You know what you're doing, don't you?"
"What?" croaked the gnome.
"You're obstructing an LAP operation."
"I ain't obstructing nothing."
"And as such, it is in my power to remove said obstruction using any force that I deem necessary."
"Don't you threaten me, missy."
Holly drew the baton, twirling it expertly. "I'm not threatening you. I'm just informing you of police procedure. If you continue to obstruct me, I remove the obstruction, in this case you, and proceed to the next in command."
Terrell was unconvinced. "You wouldn't dare."
Holly grinned. "I'm the crazy girly captain. Remember?" The gnome considered it. It was unlikely the officer would buzz him, but then again, with female elves, who knew? I don't think it was ever established, but which dragon is your favorite? I don't really have a favorite. They're all my children, and I love them all. Pyre was the first one on the stream, but that's because I didn't have Flint yet. I can't pick a favorite. I love them all. They're like my children. Okay. Okay, he said, printing off a sheet on the computer. This is a 24-hour visa, but if you're not back here in that time, I've just changed his accent again. Flint looked at you like, Mommy, I love you. I love you. Mwah. Love you too, Flint. Okay. This is a 24-hour visa, but if you're not back here in that time, I'll have you taken into custody on your return. Then I'll be the one making the threats. Holly snatched the sheet. Whatever. Now remember, make sure the arrival dock is clear when I get back. Ireland. En route from St. Bartleby's to Fowl Manor. Artemis was bouncing ideas off Butler, a technique he often used when trying to come up with a plan. After all, if anybody was an expert on covert operations, it was his bodyguard. We can't trace the MPG.
No, Artemis, I tried. They put a decay virus in with the email. Excuse me. I only barely managed to get the film on disk before the original disintegrated.
What about the MPG itself? Could we get a geographical fix from the stars?
Butler smiled. Young Master Artemis was starting to think like a soldier.
No luck. I sent a shot to a friend of mine in NASA. He didn't even bother putting it into the computer. Not enough definition.
Artemis was silent for a minute.
How fast can we get to Russia?
Butler drummed his fingers on the steering wheel.
It depends.
Depends on what?
On how we go. Legal or illegal.
Which is quicker?
Butler laughed. Something you didn't hear very often.
Illegal is usually faster. Either way is going to be pretty slow. We can't go by air, that's for sure. The Mafia is going to have foot soldiers at every airstrip.
Are we sure it's the Mafia?
Butler glanced in the rearview mirror.
I'm afraid so. All kidnappings go through the Mafia. Even if an ordinary criminal managed to abduct your father, he would have to hand him over.
Artemis nodded. That's what I thought. So, we will have to travel by sea, and that'll take a week at the very least. We could really use some help with transport. Something the Mafia wouldn't expect. How's our ID situation?
No problem. I thought we'd go native. Russians arouse less suspicion in Russia. I have passports and visas.
Good. What's our cover?
What about Stefan Bashkir and his uncle Constantine?
Perfect. The chess prodigy and his chaperone.
They had used this cover many times before on previous search missions. Once a checkpoint official, himself a chess grandmaster, had doubted their story, until Artemis beat him in 6 moves. Artemis's technique had since become known as the Bashkir maneuver.
How soon can we leave?
Almost immediately. Mrs. Fowl and Juliet are in Nice this weekend. That gives us 8 days. We can mail to school, make up some excuse.
I dare say. St. Bartleby's would be glad to be rid of me for a while.
That just changed.
We could go straight to the airport from Fowl Manor. The Learjet is stocked. At least we can fly as far as Scandinavia, and we can try to pick up a boat from there. I just have to pick up a few things at the manor first.
Artemis could imagine exactly the kind of things his manservant wished to pick up. Dangerous things.
Good. The sooner the better. We've got to find these people before they know we're looking. We can monitor our email as we go.
Butler took the exit for Fowl Manor.
You know, Artemis. he said, glancing in the mirror. "We're going up against the Russian mafia. I've had dealings with these people before. They don't negotiate. This could get bloody. If we take these gangsters on, people are going to get hurt. Most likely us."
Artemis nodded absently, watching his own reflection in the window. He needed a plan. Something audacious and brilliant. Something that had never been attempted before. Artemis was not unduly worried on that front. His brain had never let him down before. Tara Shuttleport. The ferry shuttleport at Tara was an impressive operation. 30,000 cubic feet of terminal concealed beneath an overgrown hillock in the middle of the McGraney farm. For centuries, the McGraneys had respected the ferry fort's boundaries, and for centuries they had enjoyed exceptional good luck. Illnesses mysteriously cleared up overnight, priceless art treasures popped up with incredible regularity, and mad cow disease seemed to avoid their herds altogether. Having solved her visa problem, Holly finally made her way to the security door and stepped through the holographic camouflage. She had managed to secure a set of cowboy double-decks for the trip. The rig ran on a satellite-bounced solar battery, and employed a revolutionary wing design. There were 2 sets, or decks, one fixed for gliding, and a smaller set for maneuverability. Holly had been dying to try the double decks out, but only a few rigs had made their way across from Cowboy Labs. Foley was reluctant to let them out because he hadn't designed them. Professional envy. Holly had taken advantage of his absence from the lab to swipe a set from the rack. She soared 50 feet above the ground, allowing unfiltered surface air to fill her lungs. Though laden with pollutants, it was still sweeter than the recycled tunnel variety. For several minutes, she enjoyed the experience, before turning her concentration to the mission at hand: how to abduct Artemis Fowl. Not from his home, Fowl Manor, that was for certain. Legally, she put herself on very shaky ground by entering a dwelling without permission, even though, technically, Fowl had invited her in by kidnapping her last year. Not many lawyers would take your case on the basis of that defense. Anyway, the manor was a virtual fortress and had already seen off an entire LEP retrieval team. Why should she fare any better? There was also the complication that Artemis could very well be expecting her, especially if he was trading with the Bawa Kel. The idea of walking into a trap did not appeal to Holly. She had already been imprisoned once in Fowl Manor. Doubtless her cell was still furnished. Holly activated the computer navigation package, calling up Fowl Manor on her helmet visor. A soft crimson light began to blip beside the 3D plan of the house. The building had been red flagged by the LEP. Holly groaned. Now she would be treated to a video warning, just in case there was one recon officer under the world who had not heard of Artemis Fowl. Corporal Lily Fraun's face appeared on the screen. Of course they had chosen Lily for this assignment. The bimbo face of the LEP. Sexism was alive and well and living in Police Plaza. It was rumored that Fraun's LEP scores had been bumped up because she was a decadent of the Elfin King. Because she was a descendant of the Elfin King. "You have selected Fowl Manor," said Fraun's image, tossing blonde tresses over her shoulder. "This is a red-flagged building. Unauthorized access is strictly forbidden. Do not even attempt a flyover. Artemis Fowl is considered an active threat to the people." A picture of Fowl appeared beside Frond, a digitally enhanced scowl on his face. "His accomplice, known only as Butler, is not to be approached under any circumstances. He is generally armed and always dangerous." Butler's massive head appeared beside the other images. Armed and dangerous hardly did him justice. He was the only human in history to have taken on a troll and won. Holly sent the coordinates to the flight computer and let the wings do the steering for her. The countryside sped by below. Even since her last visit, the mudman infestation seemed to have taken a stronger hold. There was barely an acre of land without dozens of their dwellings digging into its soil. and barely a mile of river without one of their factories pouring its poison into the waters. The sun finally dipped below the horizon, and Holly raised the filters on her visor. Time was on her side now. She had the entire night to come up with a plan. Holly found that she missed Foley's sarcastic comments in her ear. Annoying as the Centaur's observations were, they generally proved accurate, and had saved her hide on more than one occasion. She tried to establish a link, but the flares were still high, and there was no reception, nothing but static. Fowl Manor loomed in the distance, completely dominating the surrounding landscape. Holly scanned the building with her thermal bar and found nothing but insect and small rodent life forms. Spiders and mice. Nobody home. That suited her fine. She landed on the head of a particularly gruesome stone gargoyle and settled in to wait. Fowl Manor. The original Fowl Castle had been built by Odin Fowl. Aodhan. Aodhan. Aodhan Fowl in the 15th century, overlooking low-lying country in all sides. A tactic borrowed from the Normans. Never let your enemies sneak up on you. Over the centuries, the castle had been extensively remodeled until it became a manor, but the attention to security remained. The manor was surrounded by 3-foot thick walls and wired with a state-of-the-art security system. Butler pulled off the road, opening the estate gates by a remote control. He glanced back at his employer's thoughtful face. Sometimes he thought that in spite of all his contacts, informants, and employees, Artemis Fowl was the loneliest boy he had ever met.
We could bring a couple of those fairy blasters, he said.
Butler had relieved LEP Retrieval 1 of their weaponry during that previous year's siege. Artemis nodded. Good idea, but remove the nuclear batteries and put them in a bag with some old games and books. We can pretend they're toys if we're captured.
Yes, sir. Good thinking.
The Bentley red tag crunched up the driveway, activating the ground security lights. There were several lamps on in the main house. These were on randomly alternating timers. Butler undid his seatbelt, stepping lithely from the Bentley.
You need anything special, Artemis?
Artemis nodded. Grab some caviar from the kitchen. You wouldn't believe the muck they feed us in Bartleby's for 10,000 a semester. Butler smiled again. A teenager, asking for caviar. He'd never get used to it. The smile withered on his lips halfway to the recently remodeled entrance. A shiver passed across his heart. He knew that feeling well. His mother had used to say that someone had just walked over his grave. A sixth sense, gut instinct. There was peril somewhere, invisible, but here nonetheless. This is... You can see Flint's face? This one's Flint here, on the book, then this one's Pyre. Flint is adorable. I love Flint. I love Pyre. They're all wonderful. Holly spotted the headlights raking from the sky over a mile away. Optics were no good from this vantage point. Even when the automobile's windshield came into view, the glass was tinted, and the shadows beyond were deep. Holly felt her heart rate increase at the sight of Fowl's automobile. The car wound along the avenue, flickering between the rows of willow and horse chestnut. Holly ducked instinctively, though she was completely shielded from human eyes. You couldn't be certain with Artemis Fowl's manservant. Last year, he had dismantled a fairy helmet and constructed an eyepiece that allowed him to spot and neutralize an entire cracked squad of LEP retrieval commandos. It was hardly likely that he was wearing the lens at the moment, but as Treble Kelp and his boys had learned, it didn't pay to underestimate Butler.
Okay, you can see his face from the side. Awesome. Cool. Holly set the neutrino to slightly above the recommended stun setting. A couple of Butler's brain cells might get fried, but she wasn't about to lose any sleep over it. The car swung into the driveway, crunching across the gravel. Butler climbed out. Holly felt her back teeth grinding. Once upon a time, she had saved his life, healing him after a mortal encounter with a troll. She wasn't sure if she would do it again. Holding her breath, Holly set the double decks to slow descent. She alighted soundlessly, aiming her weapon at Butler's chest. Now there was a target a sun-blinded dwarf couldn't miss. The human couldn't have detected her presence. Not possible. Yet something made him pause. He stopped and sniffed the air. The mudman was like a dog. No, not a dog. A wolf. Holly focused her helmet lens on the weapon, sending a photo to her computer database. Moments later, a high-res rotating 3D image of the gun appeared in the corner of her visor.
"Sig Sauer," said a recorded bite of Foley's voice. 9mm? Big bullets. One of these hits you, and even magic can't fix it. Other than that, you should be alright. Presuming you remember to wear the regulation above-ground microfiber jumpsuit, recently patented by me. Then again, being a recon jock, you probably didn't.
Holly scowled. Foley was all the more annoying when he was right. She had jumped on the first available shuttle without even bothering to change into an above-ground suit. Holly's eyes were level with Butler's now, yet still more than 3 feet from the ground. She released the visor seal, wincing at the pneumatic hiss. Butler heard the escaping gas and swung toward the source.
"Fairy, I know you're there," he said. "Unshield or I start shooting."
This was not exactly the tactical advantage Holly had in mind. Her visor was up, and the manservant's finger was creaking on his pistol's hair trigger. She took a deep breath and shut down her shield. "Hello, Butler," she said evenly. Butler cocked his weapon.
"Hello, Captain. Come down slowly and don't try any of your—"
"Put your gun away," said Holly, her voice layered with a hypnotic mesmer. Butler fought it, his gun barrel shaking erratically. "Put it down, Butler. Don't make me fry your brain." A vein pulsed in Butler's eyelid. Unusual, thought Holly. I've never seen that before. "Don't fight me, Mudman. Give in to it." Butler opened his mouth to speak, to warn Artemis. She pushed harder, the magic cascading around the human's head. "I said, put it down." A bead of sweat ran down the bodyguard's cheek. "Put it down!" And Butler did, gradually and grudgingly. Holly smiled. "Good, Mudman. Now, back up to the car and act as though nothing's wrong." The manservant's legs obeyed, ignoring the signals from his own brain. Holly buzzed up her shield. She was going to enjoy this. Artemis was composing an email on his laptop. "Dear Dr. Guinea, because of your counselor's tactless interrogation of my little Artie, I have taken him out of school for a course of therapy sessions with real professionals in the Mont Gaspard Clinic in Switzerland. I am considering legal action. Do not attempt to contact me, as that would only serve to irritate me further, and when irritated, I generally call my attorneys. Sincerely, Angeline Fowl." Artemis sent the message, allowing himself the luxury of a small grin. It would be nice to watch Principal Guinea's expression when he read the electronic letter. Unfortunately, the button camera he'd planted in the headmaster's office could only be accessed within a 1-mile radius. Butler opened the driver's door and, after a moment, slipped into the seat. Artemis folded the phone into its wallet. "Captain Short, I presume. Why don't you stop vibrating and settle into the visible spectrum?" Holly speckled into view. There was a gleaming gun in her hand. "Really, Holly, Is that necessary? Holly snorted. Well, let's see. Kidnapping, actual bodily harm, extortion, conspiracy to commit murder. I'd say it's necessary. Please, Captain Short, smiled Artemis. I was young and selfish. Believe it or not, I do harbour some doubts over that particular venture. Not enough doubts to return the gold? No, admitted Artemis. Not quite. How did you know I was here? Artemis steepled his fingers. There were several clues. 1. Butler did not conduct his usual bomb check under the car. 2. He returned without the items he went to fetch. 3. The door was open for several seconds, something no good security man would permit. And 4. I detected a slight haze as you entered the vehicle. Elementary, really. Holly scowled. Observant little mud boy, aren't you? I try. Now, Captain Short, if you'd be so kind as to tell me why you're here. As if you don't know. Artemis thought for a moment. Interesting. I would guess that something has happened. Obviously, something that I am being held responsible for. He raised an eyebrow fractionally. An intense expression of emotion for Artemis Fowl. They are humans, trading with the people. Very impressive, said Holly. Or it would be, if we didn't both know that you're behind it. And if we can't get the truth out of you, I'm sure your computer files will prove most revealing. Artemis closed the laptop's lid. Captain, I realise there's no love lost between us, but I don't have time for this now. It is imperative that you give me a few days to sort out my affairs. No can do, Fowl. There are a few people underground who'd like a word. Artemis shrugged. I suppose, after what I did, I can't really expect any consideration. That's right, you can't. Well then, sighed Artemis, I don't suppose I have a choice. Holly smiled. That's right, Fowl. You don't. Excuse me. Shall we go? Artemis's tone was meek, but his brain was sparking with ideas. Maybe cooperating with the fairies wasn't such a bad idea. They had certain abilities, after all. Why not? Holly turned to Butler. Drive south. Stay on the back roads. Tara, I presume. I've often wondered where exactly the entrance to A1 was. Keep wondering, Mudboy, muttered Holly. Now, sleep. All this deduction is wearing me out. I totally gave her an Irish accent there. Flint is the cutest ice dragon I ever did see. I love her cool colors. Yeah, I adore her. I adore little Flint. Although I think the person who created him, I think Flint is a guy based on the person, on the post from the person that made him. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was brother. Chapter 4. Foul is fair. The lower elements, Haven City, Police Plaza, Detention Cell 4. Artemis woke in the LAP interrogation room. He could have been in any police interview office in the world. Same uncomfortable furniture, same old routine. Root jumped right into it.
Okay, Fowl, start talking.
Artemis took a moment to get his bearings. Holly and Root were facing him across a low plastic-topped table. A bright bulb shone directly into his face. Really, Commander? Is this it? I expected more.
Oh, there's more. Just not for criminals like you.
Artemis noted that his hands were shackled to the chair. You're not still upset about last year, are you? After all, I won. That is supposed to be that, according to your own book. Root leaned forward, until the tip of his cigar was inches from Artemis's cut nose.
This is an entirely different case, Mudboy, so don't give me the innocent act.
Artemis was unperturbed. Which one are you? Good cop or bad cop? Root laughed heartily, the tip of his cigar drawing patterns in the air.
Good cop, bad cop. Hate to tell you this, Dorothy, but you ain't in Kansas anymore.
The commander loved quoting The Wizard of Oz. 3 of his cousins were in the movie. A figure emerged from the shadows. It had a tail, 4 legs, 2 arms, and was holding what looked like a pair of common kitchen plungers.
Okay, Mudboy, said the figure. Just relax, and this might not hurt too much.
Foley attached the suction cups to Artemis's eyes, and the boy immediately fell unconscious.
The sedative is in the rubber seals,
explained the centaur.
Gets in through the pores. They never see it coming. Tell me I'm not the cleverest individual in the universe.
Oh, I don't know, said Root innocently. That pixie cowboy is a pretty sharp female.
Foley stamped a hoof angrily.
Cowboy? Cowboy? Those wings of hers are ridiculous. If you ask me, they're using far too much cowboy technology these days. It's not good to let one company have all LEP's business.
Unless it's yours, of course.
Oh, no, wrong voice.
Unless it's yours, of course.
I'm serious, Julius. I know Opal Cowboy from my days at university. She's not stable. There are cowboy chips in all the new neutrinos. If those labs go under, all we'd have left are the DNA cannons in Police Plaza and a few cases of electric stun guns.
Root snorted.
Cowboy just upgraded every gun and vehicle in the force. 3 times the power, half the heat emission. Better than the last statistics from your lab, Foley.
Foley threaded a set of fiber optic cables back to the computer.
Yeah, well, maybe if the council would give me a decent budget.
Quit your moaning, Foley. I saw the budget for this machine. It had better do more than unblock the drains.
Are you kidding me right now? I'm using too much memory? My computer is telling me that I'm using that it's almost out of memory. But that doesn't make sense. I have 16 gig. I have 16 RAM. That book is very memory intensive. You need to download more gigarams to be able to read that. I guess. I do not use Microsoft Edge, no. I use Chrome. Wait. Nope, nope, nope. Hold on. I'm gonna try deleting some of this stuff. No. Yes. Maybe that will help. Okay. I mean, my CPU usage is fine. The temperature is fine. CPU fan. Not what I want. Let's look. Yeah, my CPU usage is only at 40%. Memory, it's only using 6.4 gig. I think it was just a... Okay. You just need to close. Oh my god. Close. Alright, fine. End task. End task. Excuse me. Sorry for coughing right into the microphone. My bad. Okay. I'm gonna have this open just so that I can see it. Keep an eye on it. Okay. That happened once in a blue moon. Just keep an eye on it. Okay. Foley flicked his tail, highly offended.
This is the Retta Major. I'm considering going private with this baby.
And
Excuse me.
And what does it... Nope. And it does what exactly?
Foley activated a plasma screen on the holding cell wall.
You see these dark circles? These are the human's retinas. Every image leaves a tiny etching. Like a photo negative, we can feed whatever pictures we want into the computer and search for matches.
Aw. It's okay, Pio. Root didn't exactly fall to his knees in awe.
Isn't that handy?
Well, yes, it is, actually. Observe!
Foley called up an image of a goblin, cross-referencing it with the Retta Major's database.
For every matching point, we get a hit. About 200 hits is normal. General shape of the head, features, and so on. Anything significantly above that, and he's seen that goblin before.
186 flashed up on the screen.
Negative on the goblin. Let's try a soft nose.
Again, the count was under 200.
Another negative. Sorry, Captain, but Master Fowl here is innocent. He's never even seen a goblin, much less traded with the Bawa Cal.
Oops. Flint, you need to stop diving off of things. They could have mind-wiped him. Foley removed the seals from Artemis's eyes.
That's the beauty of this baby. Mind wipes don't work. The Retta Major operates on actual physical evidence. You'd have to scrub the retinas.
Anything on the human's computer?
Plenty, replied Foley. But nothing incriminating. Not a single mention of goblins or batteries.
Root scratched his square jaw.
What about the big one? He could have been the go-between. Did him already with the Red Major. Nothing. Face it, the LEP have pulled in the wrong mudmen. Wipe him and send him home.
Holly nodded. The commander didn't.
Wait a minute. I'm thinking.
About what? Asked Holly. The sooner we get Artemis Fowl's nose out of our business, the better.
Maybe not. Since they're already here.
Holly's jaw dropped. Commander, you don't know the Fowl the way I do. Give him half a chance, and he'll be a bigger problem than the goblins.
Maybe he could help us with our mudman problem.
I have to object, Commander. These humans are not to be trusted. Root's face would have glowed in the dark.
Do you think I like this, Captain? Do you think I relish the idea of crawling to this mud boy? I do not. I would rather swallow live stinkworms than ask Artemis Fowl for help. But someone is powering the Balwakel's arms, and I need to find out who. So get with the program, Holly. There's more at stake here than your little vendetta.
Holly bit her tongue. She couldn't oppose the commander, not after all he'd done for her. But asking Artemis Fowl for help was the wrong course of action, whatever the situation. She didn't doubt for a minute that the human would have a solution to their problem, but at what cost?
Root drew a deep breath. Okay, Foley. Bring him around. And fit him with the translator. Speaking mudman gives me a headache.
Artemis massaged the puffy skin beneath his eyes. Sedative in the sails? He said, glancing at Foley. Microneedles. The centaur was impressed.
You're pretty sharp for a mud boy.
Artemis touched the crescent-shaped nodule fixed above his ear. Translator. Foley nodded at the commander.
Speaking in tongues gives some people a headache.
Artemis straightened his skull tie. I see. Now, how can I be of service?
What makes you think we need help from you, human?
Growled Root around the butt of his cigar. The boy smirked. I have a feeling, Commander, that if you did not need something from me, I would be regaining consciousness in my own bed, and with absolutely no memory of our encounter. You are lying. My computer has plenty of memory. I can see it. Foley hid his grin behind a hairy hand. You're lucky you're not waking up in a cell, said Holly. Still bitter, Captain Short. Can't we wipe the site clean? Holly's glare was all the answer he needed. Artemis sighed. Very well. I shall guess. There are humans trading with your lower elements, and you need Butler to track these merchants down. Close enough. The fairies were silent for a moment. Hearing it from Fowl suddenly brought the reality home to them.
Close enough, admitted Root. Okay, Foley, bring Mudboy up to speed.
The consultant loaded a file from the LEP central server. A series of network news clips flashed up on a plasma screen. The reporter was a middle-aged elf with a forelock the size of a tidal wave.
Downtown Haven, crooned the reporter. Another contraband seizure by the LEP. Hollywood laserdiscs with an estimated street value of 500 ounces of gold. The Balwakel Goblin Triad is suspected.
It gets worse,
said Root grimly. Artemis smiled. There's worse? The reporter appeared again. This time, flames billowed from the windows of a warehouse behind him. His forelock looked a bit crispy.
Tonight, the Balwakel have staked their claim to the East Bank by torching a warehouse used by Cowboy Laboratories. Apparently, the Pixie with the Golden Touch refused to pay their protection fee.
The flames were replaced by another news bite, this time featuring an angry mob. Controversy today outside Police Plaza as the public protests an LEP's failure to deal with the goblin problem. Many ancient houses have been put out of business by Bawa Kel's racketeering. Most heavily targeted have been Cowboy Laboratories, who have suffered 6 counts of sabotage in the past month alone. Hello, Lil Marion. How are you tonight? Also, why in the hell what? Fully froze the image. The public did not look happy.
The thing you have to understand, Val, is that goblins are dumb. I'm not insulting them. It's scientifically proven. Brains no bigger than rats.
Artemis nodded. So, who's organizing them? Root ground out his cigar.
We don't know. But it's getting worse. The Bawa Kel have graduated from petty crime to an all-out war on the police. Last night, we intercepted a delivery of batteries from the surface. These batteries are being used to power outlawed soft-nosed laser weapons.
And Captain Short thought I might be the middleman on the other end of the deal. Can you blame me? Muttered Holly. Artemis ignored the comment. How do you know the goblins aren't just ripping off wholesalers? After all, batteries are rarely underguarded. Foley chuckled.
No, I don't think you understand just how stupid goblins are. Let me give you an example. One of the Bawa generals, and this is their top fairy, was caught trying to pass off a forged credit card because he signed his own name. No, whoever is behind this would need a human contact to make sure the deals weren't fouled up.
So, you'd like me to find out who this human contact is? Said Artemis. And, more importantly, how much he knows. As he spoke, Artemis's mind was racing. He could work this entire situation to his advantage. The people's powers would be valuable aces to hold in a negotiation with mobsters. The seeds of a plan began to sprout in his brain. Root nodded reluctantly.
That's it. I can't risk putting leprechaun agents above ground. Who knows what technology the goblins have traded? I could be walking my agents into a trap. As humans, you both could blend in.
Butler, blend in? Smelled Artemis. I doubt it.
At least he doesn't have 4 legs and a tail,
observed Foley. Why did my water just fizz? It's fine. Point taken. And there's no doubt that if any man alive can track down your rogue trader, it's Butler. But here we go, thought Holly. Artemis Fowl does nothing for nothing.
But,
prompted Root. But, if you want my help, I will require something in return.
What exactly?
Said Root warily. I need transport to Russia, replied Artemis. The Arctic Circle, to be precise. And I need help with the rescue attempt. Ray, your water is being dramatic to distract you from your computer memory. True facts, Ballin, true facts. The Arctic Circle, to be precise. And I need help with the rescue attempt. Root frowned.
Northern Russia is not good for us. We can't shield there because of the radiation.
Those are my conditions, said Artemis. The man I intend to rescue is my father. For all I know, it's already too late, so I really don't have time to negotiate. The mud boy sounded sincere. Even Holly's heart softened for a moment, but you never knew with Artemis Fowl. This could all be part of yet another scheme. Root made an executive decision.
Deal,
he said, holding out his hand. They shook. Fairy and human. A historic moment.
Good, said Root. Now, fully. Wake the big one and give that goblin shuttle a quick systems check.
What about me? Asked Holly. Back on stakeout duty? If Root had not been a commander, he probably would have cackled.
Oh no, Captain. You're the best shuttle pilot we have. You're going to Paris.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and read the next chapter. Alright, you enjoy that, Lil Marion. Chapter 5. Daddy's Girl. Cowboy Laboratories, East Bank, Haven City. Cowboy Laboratories was carved from the rock of Haven's East Bank. It stood 8 stories high, surrounded by a mile of granite on 5 sides, with access from the front only. The Cowboy people had beefed up their security, and who could blame them? After all, the Bawal-Kel had specifically targeted the company for arson attacks. The council had gone so far as to grant the company special weapons permits. If Cowboy went under, the entire Haven City Defense Network went under with it. Any Bawal-Kel goblins attempting to storm the Cowboy building would have been met with DNA-coated stun cannons, which scanned an intruder before blasting him. There were no blind spots in the building, no place to hide. The system was foolproof. But the goblins didn't have to worry about that. The laboratory's defenses were actually to keep out any LEP officers who might come snooping at the wrong moment. It was Opal Cowboy herself who was funding the Goblin Triad. The attacks on Cowboy were actually a smokescreen to divert suspicions from her actions. The tiny pixie was the mastermind behind the battery operation and the increased Bawal-Kel activity. Well, one of the masterminds. But why would an individual of almost limitless wealth possibly wish to associate with a goblin tunnel gang? Since the day of her birth, nothing much had ever been expected of Opal Cowboy. Born to a family of old money pixies on Principality Hill, she would have made her parents quite content had she attended private school.
Computer, stop it.
Had she attended private school, completed some wishy-washy arts degree, and married a suitable vice president. In fact, her father, Feral Cowboy's dream daughter, would have been moderately intelligent, quite pretty, and of course, complacent. In fact, her father... Oh wait, nope, I just read that. But Opal did not display the personality traits Feral would have wished for. By the age of 10 months, she was already walking unaided. By a year and a half, she had a vocabulary of more than 500 words. Before her second birthday, she had dismantled her first hard drive. Opal grew to be precocious, headstrong, and beautiful, a dangerous combination. Feral lost count of the times he had sat his daughter down, advising her to leave business to the male pixies. Eventually, Opal refused to see him at all. Her blatant hostility was worrying. Feral was right to be worried. Opal's first action in college was to ditch her history of art degree in favor of the male-dominated Brotherhood of Master Engineer. No sooner was the scroll in her hand than Opal set up shop in direct opposition to her father. Patents quickly followed. An engine muffler that doubled as an energy streamliner, a 3D entertainment system, and of course, her speciality, the double-deck swing series. Once Opal had destroyed her father's business, she proceeded to buy the shares at rock-bottom prices, and then incorporate her businesses under the banner of Cowboy Laboratories. Within 5 years, Cowboy Laboratories held more defense contracts than any other company. Within 10 years, Opal Cowboy had personally registered more patents than any fairy alive, except for the Centaur Foley. But it wasn't enough. Opal Cowboy Opal Cowboy yearned for the kind of power that hadn't been held by a single fairy since the days of the monarchy. Luckily, she knew someone who might be able to assist her with that particular ambition. A disillusioned officer in the LEP and a classmate from her college days. A certain Briar Cudgeon. Briar had a good reason to despise the LEP. After all, they had allowed his public humiliation at the hands of Julius Root to go unpunished. Not only that, but he had been stripped of his commander's acorns after his disastrous involvement in the Artemis Fowl affair. It had been a simple matter for Opal to slip a truth pill into Cudgeon's drink in one of Haven's swankier eateries. To her glee, she found that the delightfully twisted Cudgeon was already formulating a plan to topple the LEP. Quite an ingenious plan, as it happened. All he needed was a partner, one with large reserves of gold and secure facility at her disposal. Opal was happy to supply both. Opal was curled cat-like in her hover chair, eavesdropping on Police Plaza when Cudgeon entered the facility. "Well?" commanded Cudgeon with customary bluntness. Cowboy didn't bother to turn around. It had to be Briar. Only he had the necessary access chip to the inner sanctum implanted in his knuckle.
We lost the last shipment of power cells. A routine LEP stakeout. Bad luck.
Darv it! Swore Cudgeon. Stale. Nope. Wrong Still, no matter. We have enough stored. And to the LAP, they are simple batteries after all. Opal took a breath.
The goblins were armed.
Don't tell me.
With soft noses.
Cudgeon pounded a worktop. Those idiots! I warned them not to use those weapons. Now Julius will know something is afoot.
He may know,
said Opal placidly. That's not the right word. I don't think I've ever said this word aloud. I've only ever read it. Placatingly. Placatingly. I don't know how to pronounce this word. Let's skip it.
But he is powerless to stop us. By the time they figure it out, it'll already be too late.
Cudgeon did not smile. He hadn't in over a year. Instead, his scowl grew more pronounced. Placatingly. Thank you, Ballin. Thank you. Placatingly. I can't believe I've never said that word out loud. Or heard that word said out loud, for that matter. Good. My time is at hand. Opal Cowboy had installed mole cameras in the LAP network when her engineers were upgrading their system. The units operated on precisely the same frequency as Police Plaza's own surveillance cameras. Plus, they drew power from the heat leaking from the LAP's fiber optics. Completely undetectable. I don't correct, but will if asked. Absolutely, if there's like a word that I struggle with, absolutely correct me. I have a hard time pronouncing things sometimes. Perhaps we should have simply manufactured the batteries ourselves, mused Cudgeon.
No, just to build the factory would have set us back 2 years, and there's no guarantee that Foley wouldn't have discovered it. We had no choice.
Cowboy swiveled to face her partner.
You look terrible. Have you been using that ointment I gave you?
Cudgeon rubbed his head tenderly. It was bubbled with horrific lumps. It doesn't work. There's a cortisone in it. I'm allergic. Cudgeon's condition was unusual, perhaps unique. The previous year, he had been sedated by Commander Root during the Foul Manor siege. Unfortunately, the tranquilizer had reacted badly with some banned mind-accelerating banned mind-accelerating substances the former commander had been experimenting with. Cudgeon was left with a forehead like melted tar, plus a droopy eye. Ugly and demoted, not a great combination.
You should get those boils lanced. I can barely stand to look at you.
Sometimes, Opal Cowboy forgot who she was talking to. Briar Cudgeon was not the usual corporate lackey. Cudgeon calmly drew a customized Red Boy blaster, firing 2 bursts into the hoverchair's sleeve. The contraption whirled across the stippled rubber tiles, coming to rest sprawled across a bank of hard disks. The disgraced LEP elf caught Opal by the pointed chin. "You better not get used to looking at me, my dear Opal." Or, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. "You'd better get used to looking at me, my dear Opal, because soon this face will be on every view screen under the planet, and on top of it." The tiny pixie curled her fingers into a fist. She was unaccustomed to insubordination, not to mention actual violence, but at moments like this, she could see the madness in Cudgeon's eyes. The drugs had cost him more than his magic and his looks. They had cost him his mind. And suddenly, he was himself again, graciously helping her up as though nothing had happened. "Now, my dear, progress report. The Bawakel are eager for blood." Opal smoothed the front of her catsuit.
Captain Short is escorting the human Artemis Fowl to E37.
"Fowl is here?" exclaimed Cudgeon. "Of course. I should have guessed he would be suspected. This is perfect. Our human slave, Luc Carrere, will take care of him, too. Carrere has been mesmerized. I still have that power." Cowboy applied a layer of blood-red lipstick.
There could be trouble if Carrere is captured.
"Don't worry," Cudgeon assured her. What just happened, computer? Oh no, I've lost. There it goes. What's that? It didn't drop any frames, so whatever. That was weird. Okay. Oh my god. How is my computer low on memory? Stop saying that. "Don't worry," Cudgeon assured her. "Monsieur Carrere has been mesmerized so many times that his mind is blanker than a wiped disc. He couldn't tell any tales even if he wanted to. Then, once he has done our dirty work for us, the French police will lock him up in a nice padded cell." Opal giggled. For someone who never smiled, Cudgeon had a delicious sense of humor. Alright, and because my computer keeps, dinging, and it's also 2 a.m. I'm OKB boys. Thank you for the follow. Glad you're enjoying the stream thus far. Hope you continue to enjoy, and welcome to the dork side. But I do think we are going to call that the end of tonight's stream. We will pick up with chapter 6 next week. This book is scary. You are a brave Flint. Brave Flint is brave. But yeah, so we will pick up next week with chapter 6. I figure this will probably be this will be a 2 or 3 stream book. So I better make up a voting thing for the next book. I'm personally kind of hoping for... Oops! There we go. I'm personally kind of hoping to read the entire series of Artemis Fowl. but I will still let you guys vote on that. I don't want to read things if you aren't all interested. Excuse me, if you weren't all interested. It was fun watching and listening to story time. Oh, thank you, Velt. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yes. Tomorrow is Saints. Saints Row 2. We'll be continuing with that game. Tomorrow night, hopefully sometime around 9:30 p.m. Central. Keep an eye on my Twitter and Discord for that. I'll give those links in just a moment. I did ask my mom about making a pyre. She said she might be able to do that. I think she has to find the pattern that she used. So, but she said she could probably do that. And I know she's currently working on a chair caning project. So maybe once she's done with that, she would be willing to sell you one then. I love the book reading. You do even words. I try to words. But yeah, so tomorrow will be continuing with Saints Row. And hopefully we will have a little surprise tomorrow, assuming I'm able to get it done. We shall see, but looking forward to that. If you guys would like to hang out and chat outside of the stream, I do have a Discord server where you can do as such. Even if you don't Ballin, in reply to your whisper, absolutely. I'll probably hop in Discord and we can do a voice chat over it if you want, or we can type. I don't care. But yes, absolutely, all for that. But yeah, Mastercorn, send me a Twitch message via Twitch, and regarding Pyre, and we will work out the particulars on that. What I'll do is I'll create a private Etsy listing, something along those lines. Which, while my Etsy is not officially open right now, I may do stuff like that for private Etsy listings. But yes, so yeah, if you guys want to hang out and talk in the Discord, there is that. How do you do the message? If you if you click my name where I did the exclamation point Discord, click Dorky Ray, there should be a little like envelope thing, and that should allow you to send me a message. But yeah, okay, so there's the Discord. You can chat and hang out there.